The forest was silent except for the soft rustling of leaves. A cold wind swept through the trees, carrying a hint of something metallic. Alara walked carefully, her eyes scanning the dim path ahead. Her hands brushed against the rough bark of ancient trees as she moved deeper. The moonlight barely reached the forest floor, leaving shadows that twisted like living shapes. She felt a chill creep along her spine, though the night was not yet cold enough for frost. A faint glimmer caught her eye. It was small, almost hidden among the roots of a massive oak. She crouched down and saw a stone unlike any she had ever seen. It shone with a golden hue that seemed to pulse faintly in the darkness. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it from the ground. The moment she touched the stone, a sharp vibration shot through her hand. It was warm and heavy, as if it carried the weight of centuries. A sudden whisper echoed through the forest, so faint she was unsure if it came from the wind or the stone itself. The voice called her name, soft but urgent, as though warning her to leave. Her heart pounded in her chest, and a bead of sweat slid down her temple despite the cool air. The trees seemed to close in around her. Shadows stretched unnaturally, forming shapes that looked like crouching figures. She tried to stand, but the ground beneath her felt alive, pulsing slightly under her feet. Every step forward felt heavier than the last, as if the forest itself resisted her presence. The golden stone grew warmer, almost burning now, and the whisper became a low, urgent chant. Her mind raced, and fear prickled at the edges of her thoughts. Was this stone a blessing or a curse? A sudden crack echoed nearby, and she spun around, but nothing moved. The darkness pressed closer, and the whispering voices multiplied, overlapping into an eerie harmony. She realized the stone was not merely an object, it was a signal, a beacon calling something she could not yet see. The wind rose sharply, carrying a scent of something ancient, earthy, and faintly metallic. Branches snapped in the distance, though no animal had passed. The golden stone pulsed in her hand, and a soft glow spread across the forest floor. Shadows detached from the trees, forming shapes with hollow eyes that watched her every movement. Her breath caught in her throat, and the forest fell silent for a heartbeat so heavy it felt eternal. Then the whisper became a single word, clear and commanding. Alara felt her knees weaken, and she dropped the stone. It landed with a resonant hum, shaking the leaves around it. The forest seemed to inhale, and the shapes of the shadows drew closer. Her skin prickled, and a sense of being watched settled deep in her bones. The golden light of the stone grew brighter, illuminating the faces of the shadows. They were not human, but something else, ancient and waiting. The whispering now became a roar, echoing in her mind. She wanted to run, but the forest had changed, the paths twisted in ways that made no sense. Every direction she turned led her back to the golden stone. A sudden chill enveloped her as the stone floated slightly above the ground. The shadows surrounded it, forming a ring of silent guardians. Alara realized that the stone was alive, aware of her presence. It pulsed once, and in that instant, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Fear and fascination battled within her as she stared at the glowing object. The whispers returned, repeating faster now, almost frantic. She could not understand the language, yet every word sank into her mind with clarity. The shadows began to move toward her, slowly, deliberately, their hollow eyes fixed on the golden stone in her presence. The ground beneath her feet shivered as if warning her to flee or surrender. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out all else. A low vibration emanated from the stone, growing in intensity. The air thickened, and every breath felt heavy and metallic. The whispers merged into a single, deafening voice that filled her mind. Alara could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her, and a realization hit: this stone was not meant to be found. It was waiting for her, and now, it knew her. The shadows paused, their movements synchronized with the pulsing light of the stone. A sense of inevitability settled over her. She was part of something far larger than herself. Her instincts screamed to flee, yet curiosity anchored her in place. The golden stone floated higher, illuminating the surrounding darkness with a hypnotic glow. She realized this was the moment everything changed, and nothing in the forest would ever be the same again. Alara's eyes were fixed on the floating stone, its golden light rippling like molten fire. The shadows around it seemed to pulse in time with her own heartbeat. She could hear the whispering again, softer now, as if drawing her closer. Every instinct screamed to drop to the ground, but her legs refused to obey. A cold mist began to rise from the forest floor, curling around her ankles. It smelled of wet earth, decayed leaves, and something far older, something she could not name. The whispers turned into a chant, repeating over and over, forming words she felt rather than heard. Return what is lost. Return what is lost. Her fingers itched, aching to touch the stone again. The golden light called to her in a way that bypassed reason. She reached out, and the moment her hand neared it, a searing warmth shot through her arm. Pain mixed with a strange euphoria, and she gasped, staggering backward. The shadows shifted closer. They no longer had the vague shapes of humans, they were taller, more twisted, their forms blurring into smoke and shadow. They circled the stone, moving with unnatural precision, silent yet menacing. Alara's skin crawled under the gaze. The forest seemed alive, breathing around her, listening, waiting. She noticed the stone pulsing faster now, its golden light intensifying. Her vision blurred, and the whispers became voices in her head. They spoke directly to her mind, bypassing her ears, her understanding. Touch, feel, become. A sudden tremor ran through the ground, and the trees groaned. Leaves rained down around her as if the forest were shedding its old skin. The stone rose higher, illuminating roots and vines that twisted into impossible angles. Alara felt herself drawn closer, each step against her will, as though invisible hands guided her. Fear battled fascination, but the stone's glow overpowered reason. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, thin shape with eyes like black holes. It moved with a grace that made no sound, gliding over the mist like it belonged to the air itself. It reached toward the stone with long, claw-like fingers. Alara wanted to scream, but no sound came from her throat. Her body froze, powerless under the weight of the forest's gaze. The figure spoke, not with words but with emotion. A wave of cold loneliness, of endless waiting, washed over her. She understood, in that instant, that the golden stone was a vessel. It contained something ancient, something trapped, something that had longed for freedom. The shadows were its guardians, its companions, its jailers. The stone pulsed violently, and the figure recoiled slightly. The whispers intensified, clawing at her mind, pressing into her thoughts. Alara felt herself bending toward the stone as if gravity had shifted, pulling her into its orbit. Her hand brushed the surface once more, and the world tilted violently. A shock of light exploded behind her eyes, and she screamed without sound. Suddenly, she was no longer in the forest as she knew it. The trees had vanished, replaced by an endless void of golden light and shadow. The whispers had become a chorus, chanting in perfect, terrible unison. She could see herself from outside her own body, hovering above the forest floor. The stone floated at the center, radiating a warmth that was almost unbearable. The figure moved closer, its hollow eyes boring into her soul. "Do you see?" it demanded, though no lips moved. Alara realized it was not a question. It was a command, a decree of fate. The stone was alive. It had waited centuries for someone like her. A sudden realization struck her. She could leave, but the stone would follow. Every choice she had ever made, every step in her life, had led her here. The golden light reflected not only in the forest but in her own eyes, showing a version of herself she did not recognize. It was not fear she felt now, but inevitability. And something darker, something cold and patient, watching from the edges of consciousness. The shadows moved closer, surrounding her in a ring. They whispered of time, of loss, of eternity. The golden stone pulsed faster, brighter, almost screaming in its silence. Alara's heart felt like it might stop, but she could not look away. Every instinct, every cell in her body screamed to retreat, but she remained rooted to the spot. Then the figure extended its hand toward hers. The moment their fingers touched, a shock of memories flooded her mind. She saw centuries of guardians who had found the stone and been consumed by it. She felt the weight of all the souls trapped within it, their longing, the despair. The golden stone was not treasure. It was a prison, and now, somehow, she was part of it. A violent pulse shook the void. The shadows recoiled slightly, but the light of the stone intensified, burning through the darkness. Alara screamed, this time fully, but it echoed only in her mind. The figure leaned closer, and she could feel the cold of its presence against her own warmth. The stone's energy surged into her body, a current of power and agony combined. She knew she would never return to the forest as she had known it. Time lost meaning. Seconds stretched into eternities as the golden stone whispered in every language of the world. It revealed truths that no human mind could hold without breaking. Alara felt herself fragment, her essence pulled into the glowing core. The shadows swirled faster, their forms blending with hers, with the stone. She understood the secret too late. The stone did not merely wait. It chose. It consumed. It transformed. Her last thought before everything dissolved into golden light was a shiver of understanding. The forest, the stone, the shadows, they were one. And she was now a part of something far older, far greater, and far darker than she could have ever imagined. The golden stone floated silently in the center of the forest clearing, its glow soft now, almost serene. The mist curled around it, still and expectant. No one approached the clearing again, for the forest had claimed its secret. The whispers had faded into the wind, waiting patiently for the next curious soul to find the golden stone. The forest grew still once more. The golden stone lay quietly in the clearing, its glow softened to a gentle shimmer. Mist drifted across the roots and fallen leaves, curling as if breathing slowly. Time seemed to stretch, carrying a heavy calm over the ancient trees. No shadow stirred. The wind whispered softly through the branches, carrying a faint echo of what had passed. It was not a warning anymore, only a quiet reminder that the forest held secrets far older than any visitor. Alara was gone, yet her presence lingered in the soft warmth radiating from the stone. It was as if a part of her curiosity, her courage, had become a permanent thread in the forest's story. The shadows had receded, but they were still there, patient and eternal, watching over the golden stone. A lone bird called in the distance, breaking the silence gently. The moonlight fell softly across the clearing, highlighting the stone's golden hue. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and infinitely lonely. The forest seemed to exhale, settling back into its natural rhythm. The golden stone, now calm, waited. It did not seek, it did not chase. It simply existed, holding the memories, the power, and the secrets of those who had encountered it. And somewhere, in the quiet depth of the woods, the whispers of the past and present intertwined. A story ended, yet another had begun. The forest remained, eternal and mysterious, guarding its golden secret until the next soul would come seeking the impossible.